In 2024, Vice President Kamala Harris captured 19 states. And surprise, 18 of them didn't even require voters to show a photo ID. Today, we're unpacking the who's who of voter ID laws and election integrity, breaking down exactly which states say prove it and which ones just give you a wink and a nod. This is big, and trust me, you're going to want to know why this matters. Let's get into it. Hey guys, welcome back. So do me a favor, if you haven't already, subscribe, hit the notification bell, and smack that like button because it helps us with the algorithm so that we can get our message out to more people. Also, check out our live streams on Friday night at 6 o'clock Eastern. We read interesting stories of the week, we tweak them with a bit of humor, a dash of sarcasm, and a whole lot of conservative common sense. Hope to see you Friday. All right, let's kick things off with some jaw-dropping numbers from the 2024 presidential election. Vice President Kamala Harris clinched 19 states. For her, that's an impressive win, I guess, no doubt. Okay, but here's where it gets interesting. 18 of those states didn't even require a photo ID to vote. Yeah, that's right. 18 states were cool with just a name, a promise, and off you go to the ballot box, right? It's about to get a whole lot more interesting, though, in the country, according to a review by the National Conference of State Legislatures. As of April 2024, some states still don't require voters to show any ID, and others are pretty relaxed about it. So let's break it down. 36 states in the U.S. have some kind of ID requirement for voting, but out of those, only 24 demand a photo ID, and the rest, well, they're just fine with any old ID.
Can you identify yourself?
This is me.
Yeah, well, I guess you wouldn't kid me about a thing like that.
As long as it says something. It makes you wonder, doesn't it? Like, what is the point of that? Now, let's take a look at the states Harris won. 12 of them, California, Oregon, New York, these are the big influential states, didn't require any form of ID whatsoever. Did anyone expect them to? You could just walk right in and say, hey man, I'm here to vote. And that's pretty much it. No proof, no questions asked. It's like showing up to a club without a ticket and getting in because you promised that you're on the list. And the bouncer, totally cool with it, right? Here's the thing. 5 other states Harris snagged, places like Colorado, Washington, Delaware, Connecticut, and Virginia, technically ask for ID. But hold on. They're not exactly really picky about being a photo ID. It's more like a suggestion than a rule. You know, Democrats, they'll exploit any loophole they can find. And in Colorado and Washington, where most people vote by mail, the ID rules are for in-person voters. Now, that's convenient, right? They don't have anything for mail-in voters. In states like Delaware, Connecticut, and Virginia, if you show up without an ID, no problem. You just sign an affidavit basically swearing that you are who you say you are and you're good to go. It's like promising your teacher that you'll totally bring your homework tomorrow. Spoiler alert. That doesn't always happen. New Hampshire was a bit different, though. They also didn't require ID, but here's the thing. You have to sign a challenged voter affidavit. It's a fancy way of saying, are you sure you're not lying to me? Oh, and after the election, they'll send you a letter. And if you don't return it, guess what? You're flagged for a voter fraud investigation. New Hampshire doesn't mess around. And Rhode Island, well, they were the only state Harris won that took ID seriously. If you don't have one, you're handed a provisional ballot only. They'll match your signature with what's on file, so no funny handwriting there. Now, here's an interesting flip side. Some states that Harris lost, like Nevada and Pennsylvania, also don't require voter ID. But get this, Nevada's voters recently passed Question 7, which will require photo IDs in future elections. Now, Pennsylvania, my home state, we tried a similar move back in 2012. It passed, and then the Democrat-controlled state Supreme Court struck it down, saying that there wasn't enough time to implement the rules of it before the 2012 election. It was only a year away, and no one bothered to push it any further after that, so it just withered on the vine, as they say. The dying legacy news media were out in force, though, trying to defend the undefendable, posting articles about how it's false that Kamala only won states that didn't have voter ID laws. And let's see how they got away with it. We'll start off with USA Today had a headline. Harris won some states that require voter ID, contrary to online claims. Newsweek, another liberal rag, ran a headline, fact check. Did Kamala Harris win only where voter ID isn't necessary? These guys wonder why the legacy media is dying a slow and painful death. Do you see what they're doing? This is what I call a cluster F collaboration. It's where all the left-wing outlets decide what the narrative is going to be together, and then they all follow it in their own little clever ways. What they're doing here is acting as if conservatives are pointing out that all the states that Kamala won had no voter ID. But that's not the case, and nobody's saying that. People are coming out and saying 18 out of 19 states that Kamala won had no voter ID laws where you got to show photo ID. There are a couple in there that have voter ID laws, but they don't require the photo. And a couple of them say, hey, do you have an ID? And if you don't, they go, okay, go ahead and vote anyway. We were just kidding, right? And then we have News Nation with the headline, fact check, both Harris-Trump won states with no voter ID laws. That's not a fact check. It's a declarative statement. I was saying that both Trump and Harris won states without voter ID laws. A fact check on 18 out of 19 states that Kamala won had no voter ID laws for a photo ID. That's what I've been saying. I think Trump won 2 states without voter ID laws, and the rest of them, you had to show ID with a picture. Now, News Nation should be ashamed of themselves. Now, to be fair, Trump won the states like Oklahoma, Kentucky, and Utah, where they kindly ask you for ID, but they're not going to break your arm if you don't provide it. It's a polite ask, but you get to walk out of the place alive if you don't have it. And when you think about it, that's not too cool, but Oklahoma and Utah are some of the reddest states in the union, and Kentucky is pretty red as well. But, you know, in Kentucky, they lose their minds about every other term. And then it's back in 2019, they elected a Democrat governor, Andy Beshear. But the state is pretty conservative. They usually go, you know, Republican, Democrat, but the people there are pretty far conservative. So there you have it, guys. A quick look at how voter ID laws vary wildly across the United States. The 2024 election brought this to light, big league. Now, hopefully, the country can start talking about the importance of election integrity laws with voter ID at the forefront. Democrats always say that they want every vote to count, don't they? And I got to ask, do they really? When conservatives hear, I want every vote to count, they take it to mean that every legitimate vote should be counted, while the Democrats say it, and what they mean is that every ballot should be counted, whether it's valid or not, so long as that vote goes towards the Democrat. No one is ever going to convince me otherwise. And I hope that national conversation begins soon, because let's be real, until IDs are required everywhere, voter fraud remains a serious concern. And this story sheds light on why Democrats are always fighting against election integrity laws. The truth is, despite the lies coming from the Democrats and the dying legacy media, voter ID doesn't prevent people from voting. It prevents people from cheating. All right. Thanks for watching. Subscribe, hit that notification bell if you want to be kept up to date with more breakdowns of important political news like this. I'll see you in the next one. Spread the word.